Today, with the assistance of our colleague, Assemblymember Costa, I ask you to approve the audit of the Gold Coast Healthcare Plan in Ventura County. The reason I ask for this is really quite simple. This county-run healthcare plan is putting independent pharmacies in Ventura County at risk of bankruptcy, and several independent pharmacies have already been forced to close down. Medi-Cal beneficiaries in Ventura County deserve better, and the actions of Gold Coast Healthcare deserve the scrutiny of an audit to find out if their decisions have been the best for those they're supposed to be serving. In 2009, the Ventura County Board of Supervisors voted to create GCHP as a county organized health systems model. After beginning service in 2011, they were flagged by the State Department of Healthcare Services for some fiscal inefficiencies, so they chose in 2016 to put out a request for a new pharmacy benefit manager, as we commonly refer to them as PBMs, which was awarded to a company called Optum RX. This is the point that pharmacies began to experience serious problems with reimbursements for generic and brand name drugs that they were providing to their Medi-Cal beneficiaries. The largest problem for pharmacies has been the implementation of clawbacks. This is when the PBM demands refunds for reimbursements that have already been provided to pharmacies. And they claim it was due to alleged coding errors by the pharmacy benefit managers. This has caused many independent pharmacies to give back payments that were in their minds already below the cost of the drugs that they had provided. Many of these pharmacies believe they cannot survive if this pattern of under reimbursement and subsequent clawbacks continues. I respectfully thus ask the committee to authorize an audit to see if Gold Coast Healthcare followed proper procedures when bringing on their new PBM, to evaluate whether Gold Coast policies for establishing reimbursement rates are reasonable and appropriate, and to assess whether the state's oversight of this process is adequate and appropriate. Thank you very much for this request, and at the appropriate time, I'd like to introduce my witness, Daniel Martinez from the California Pharmacists Association, who's in support of this request.
Thank you, Senator. And before you go any further, I believe that we have a bipartisan recommendation in support of your audit request. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Members, I'll be brief. My name is Danny Martinez. I work for California Pharmacists Association. I'd like to remind folks to keep in mind that, first and foremost, that there are real people being impacted by these clawbacks, as Senator Stone mentioned. Several pharmacists have informed our association that they're on the verge of going out of business or that they are already out of business. One pharmacist I spoke to recently informed us that she had to take out a $500,000 personal loan just for payroll, overhead, and just to keep her doors open. I'm sad to report she was not able to keep her doors open, and that pharmacy has closed. Another pharmacist I've spoken to had to stop taking a salary. She used up her savings. She sold her car. She put her house on the market, all just to keep the pharmacy open. Right now, I'm happy to say it's open, but it's on the very last string before it closes. And I don't know how much longer that pharmacy is going to last. None of this was really a problem prior to Optum RX becoming the PBM back in June 1st of 2017. And there were some controversies surrounding this PBM being implemented in that time. During the hearing which decided the new PBM, there were 3 finalists that were scored according to what was the necessary scoring that the plan needed, and Optum ended up scoring lowest of the 3 finalists, and yet were selected. And so this despite the objections of several independent pharmacies and the other finalists as well. In August of 2017 is when we were first contacted about this issue, and during this time we had urged our folks to go to these commission meetings that oversee the plan to voice their concerns, because these clawbacks were starting to take place, along with the negative reimbursements that were plummeting as soon as this PBM started taking over. I've been going to these commission meetings personally since December of 2017 because the issue was not getting any better. We had communicated to the plan at that time that there is a problem that needs to be fixed. Pharmacies were in danger of closing. And as you all know, when pharmacies close, access to care for patients becomes a problem. And it is important to note that Gold Coast only serves Medi-Cal beneficiaries. And when they don't have access to meds, not only do they have medical problems, but costs to the counties rise, which means cost to the state rises as well. So with that, I'll just turn it over to the state auditor. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members. As Senator Stone indicated, this is an audit essentially of Gold Coast, but we would be looking at any state agencies that are responsible, particularly healthcare services, and what their oversight role is with respect to managed care entities. But clearly an important objective that the Senator and Assembly member have asked us to look at is the whole RFP process that was used in determining and selecting OptumRx as the PBM in this particular region, and specifically looking at determining whether or not Gold Coast executed the contract in the best interest of the constituents and the pharmacies, both the beneficiaries and the pharmacies in the region. And when the information was presented to the commission in Ventura County, their Medi-Cal Managed Care Commission, was it a full disclosure of information when they were determining how to vote on that particular contract? So really the members wanting to understand, was accurate, relevant, robust information provided to the commission? So we would look for that. And then with respect to the operations, whether or not Gold Coast is really providing sufficient oversight over the PBM to make sure that that PBM is following laws, regulations, policies, et cetera. And then looking at reimbursement rates, and they're asking us to do a comparison for the reimbursement rates that Gold Coast and OptumRx provide. Compare that to some other managed care and some other PBMs in California and see if there are differences and why are there those differences. And then associated with that, really looking at Gold Coast's practices and procedures for establishing what the reimbursement rate should be, determining whether or not those reimbursement rates are reasonable, and if not, what steps do they take to address the issues. The budget for the audit's around 2,000 hours. This would take one team about 5 months to complete the field work, get the audit done. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I would like to now invite any representatives from the Gold Coast Health Plan to come forward.
Mr. Chairman and members, Trent Smith with Edelstein, Gilbert, Robeson, and Smith. We represent the Gold Coast Health Plan, and we have with you today Dr. Annie Fries, who's the pharmacy manager with Gold Coast, that can provide some history of this long issue.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members. I am Dr. Ann Fries, a pharmacist and the director of Gold Coast Health Plan, the state-funded public agency serving more than 200,000 Medi-Cal beneficiaries in Ventura County. The plan appreciates the opportunity to address the committee and the audit request. This audit request addresses first the selection of the plan's pharmacy benefit manager, or PBM. Second, pharmacy reimbursement rates. And third, recoupments described as clawbacks. In 2016, the plan conducted a thorough public PBM procurement process, culminating in the plan's governing commission's selection of OptumRx. Shortly after, the incumbent PBM sued the commission over its selection process. The court denied the petition in its entirety. Other bidders did not join the lawsuit, nor was the ruling appealed. We believe that an audit would review matters previously reviewed by the court. The second area of focus is the pharmacy reimbursement rates. Due to the concern of independent pharmacies about rates, the plan hired an independent external consultant to conduct a market rate analysis comparing current rates, prior rates, and industry averages. The analysis showed that the rates are within market for a Medicaid managed care plan in California and nationwide. The final area of focus is the recoupments or clawbacks. In its first year of service, OptumRx made several pricing errors, resulting in overpayments to pharmacies. The plan is required by law to recoup funds overpaid to providers. It is important to note that independent pharmacies recently filed a lawsuit against not only OptumRx, but also their contracting agents. We are following the progress of this suit closely as part of the regular monitoring of our pharmacy network. Of utmost importance to the plan is our commitment to our members and ensuring that they have access to pharmacy services. It's important to note that no members have reported any access issues. In summary, the court upheld the plan's procurement process. An independent rate analysis concluded that the rates are within market. The overpayments were recouped as required. In light of these activities and the new litigation brought by the independent pharmacies, our position is that this audit will review matters previously independently reviewed. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I also wanted to extend the opportunity to a representative for the Department of Healthcare Services if they would like to make any comments. If not, it's up to you. Okay. I see. Okay. All right. Questions from the committee, Ms. Rubio.
Yes, my biggest concern is that there is pending litigation, and that's what was the reason that I pulled it off consent, is I wanted to just check with the auditor in terms of litigation, because I know we've had previous requests that were being litigated, and how do we continue with that?
So under our standards, I'm having my chief counsel come up and talk because she'll do a better job than I, but under our audit standards, we are precluded from conducting audit work that we determine would interfere with an ongoing litigation or investigation. So we would make sure that when we're, and I have an attorney assigned every audit, when they're working with the audit team, that we're not stepping into an area that would potentially interfere with the litigation. But I don't know.
Stephanie Ramirez Ridgway, Chief Counsel for the State Auditor's Office. Good morning. We have not seen the litigation in question. It sounds like it's a Superior Court matter, which is very difficult for us to obtain at the early portion of our research on these audit requests. To the extent that we would identify issues of overlap between the audit request and the litigation, as the state auditor has indicated, we would endeavor to scope around those issues. In other words, perhaps select a different provider, select different medications than are those that are at issue in the litigation. And we do have limitations, as the state auditor indicated, in terms of our ability to report on matters as well if they, in fact, would interfere with the ongoing litigation. And that is something that we would work with the auditee as we went through the course of the audit to make sure that we were not doing anything to jeopardize either party's rights in that process.
Thank you.
Ms. Baker?
Thank you. I have the same question. I want to just get a little bit more specific. The scope of discovery in the other matter is decided by a judge, and how the parties go back and forth before a judge on what can be disclosed to the other side, what is privileged, what isn't. I know from previous experience in this committee that you're very sensitive to what's privileged information. Mm-hmm. It's perfect. But when you say we are careful to make sure we don't interfere, that includes that we don't, an analysis of whether or not your work could counteract or be inconsistent with a judge's order on the scope of discovery and what's disclosed to the other side?
We would be required to abide by that order or any similar order. Our duty to protect the information that we obtain is the same as the party's duty to protect their confidential information. So again, we would be working with the auditee to ensure that we were not releasing any information inappropriately. Bear in mind, too, that until the audit is complete, we're prohibited by law from releasing any information whatsoever. Mm-hmm. So we would work with the auditee to make sure that our work papers were appropriately sorted at the end of the job. In the event we got a CEPA request, we would work with them.
Thank you. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, could I just make one comment on the pending lawsuit here?
Briefly.
I think one of the concerns we have is the first hearing of the lawsuit is supposed to be in December and will proceed about, through the new year of next year. We're also concerned about an audit report coming out right in the middle of a lawsuit that's focusing on the very issues. I mean, they're the same issues that the court of law and the plaintiffs are looking at, that the audit report's going to come out with some sort of conclusions and overlap. And so, one, we are concerned with how this could influence any particular court case, and we're also concerned that there is some redundancy and overlap with two independent entities looking at the same issues.
Ms. Howell, would you like to respond?
Well, as my chief counsel indicated, we haven't seen the litigation, so it's hard for us to determine whether or not the scope that Senator Stone and Mr. Acosta are asking us to conduct has overlap or not. I mean, if there are instances where there is overlap, we're sensitive to that, and we would have to take into consideration what we can report out once we complete the audit, because our attorney, as I said, I have an attorney assigned to every audit. That attorney will be tracking that litigation and informing me and informing the audit team, here's where the litigation is going, there is overlap. We've had other audits where that has occurred and where we've had to back off and basically disclose in the final report that we couldn't report out on a particular issue because there was overlap, and it would, in our view, based on advice from counsel, would have interfered. So we would be careful about that. I don't know if that helps.
And it sounds to me that not only would you be careful about that, but as a general policy, you are precluded from addressing factual issues that are the subject matter of pending litigation.
That's correct. That's under the audit standards that we follow. We are precluded from the way the standard reads is we cannot interfere with an ongoing, we cannot conduct audit work that could potentially interfere with an ongoing investigation or litigation. So again, that's where we're using our professional judgment, and I'm certainly seeking advice from counsel, and then we make a determination. We can't even go there. We're going to have to, and we would have to inform the legislature once we issue the report publicly that we didn't look at this particular issue. It happened on the Montebello audit that we did for I think Senator Mendoza and other members requested that audit. There was ongoing litigation related to contracting practices, and we did some work in that area, but based on counsel's advice and looking and meeting with the team, I made the decision we can't report out on that because there's ongoing litigation, and our conclusions may be problematic. With respect to the litigation. It could influence one way or the other, and we didn't want to go there because we can't with standards. So we would conduct ourselves the same way if this audit's approved.
All right. Any comments? Any member of the public would like to address this matter? Please come forward.
Chair and members, Kathy Mossberg with the Local Health Plans of California, representing the 16 nonprofit Medi-Cal managed care plans in the state. Just want to go on record and sort of echoing the comments from Gold Coast Health Plan. We think what they did is they went through proper procedures, had proper oversight, and we do believe that this audit will be redundant. Appreciate the legal discussion here. Hopefully that all holds true, and we do have some concerns certainly about having this happen while the legal case is moving forward. But again, proper oversight. We only have so much dollar that comes to our plans from the Medicaid program, and we have to make sure everyone has adequate has their meds available to them, and that is what this plan has done. So as they stated, no one went without medication. So we think it's redundant and unnecessary. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further comments? Seeing none. Any further questions from the committee? Yes, sir.
Mr. Chair, I just want to enjoy the conversation about the legal issue. I would be somewhat surprised if a judge in a court action allows the audit report in to the extent that it supplants the role of the jury in finding facts. So I'm not overly concerned about that, and I think appropriate protections could be taken by the state auditor, as she has certainly done in the past when these issues have come up. So that's my comment on the point.
Thank you very much. Senator Stone, would you like to close?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I appreciate the representatives from Gold Coast being here. The bottom line is that in this area of the state of California, we're seeing independent pharmacies on the verge of closing or having closed much more than in any other areas of the state of California, and maybe even in certain parts of the country. The last speaker was talking about access to care. We want to make sure that we have access to care for Medi-Cal beneficiaries, to make sure that they get their medications timely. There are some areas of Ventura County that are only served by independent pharmacies because they don't have the population centers to have chain stores that are there. So this is an access to care issue. I appreciate the legal issues. I think that the auditor and chief counsel have made it very clear that they're not going to do anything to jeopardize the ongoing litigation that is going on. And for that reason, I would respectfully, in concurrence with my colleague, ask for your concurrence in auditing Gold Coast to make sure that we have the appropriate access to care for all the residents of Ventura County.
Thank you very much. I don't think we have a motion or a second on this item. Mr. Acosta moves. Seconded by Senator Fuller. Roll call, please.
Roll call to approve audit request number 2018-124 of the Gold Coast Health Plan by Senator Stone. The chair's recommendations and aye. Assemblymember Murasucci? Aye. Murasucci, aye. Acosta? Aye. Acosta, aye. Baker? Aye. Baker, aye. Nazarian? Obenolty? Rubio? Not voting. Wood? Not voting. Senator, oh, I'm so sorry. I apologize. Senator Wood is not here. Senator Roth? Aye. Roth, aye. Allen? Bell? Aye. Bell, aye. Cannella? Aye. Cannella, aye. Fuller? Aye. Fuller, aye. Laura?
All right, that request is on call.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members.
Right.